With Alpha 20 on the horizon, I decided to make a list of some tips and tricks for new players in Alpha 19. Whether you're trying to be as ready as possible for Alpha 20, or you're one of the few who won't be updating to Alpha 20, this list has 25 tips and tricks to help you improve your game. If you learn anything new, be sure to hit that like button, but without wasting any more time, let's get this list started. Number 1. Engines and car batteries. Everyone knows you can get engines and car batteries from cars. Specifically, you have a 25% chance of getting an engine and another 25% chance of getting a battery from cars in damage state 1, when hitting them with a wrench. Damage state 1 is the middle damage state of the cars you can find. This is damage stage 0, which turns into damage stage 1 when a wrench is used on it. This is damage stage 2, which is the final stage before the car disappears. And this one will not give you an engine or a battery. But wait, there's more. You can get engines from these engine blocks found in POIs. Again, using a wrench. As a bonus tip, if you have salvage operations rank 5, you will increase your salvage harvest by 100%, which does affect these engine blocks, meaning you can get 2 engines from 1 engine. Now that's some efficient scavenging. Unfortunately, salvage operations will not increase the number of engines and batteries found in cars. But wait, there's even more. Do you see these buses and trucks? These all have a 75% chance to drop an engine when scrapped with a wrench, and a 60% chance to drop a battery, again when harvested with a salvaging tool. In fact, in my experience, buses and trucks are the most reliable source of engines and batteries. Anyway, let's move on to a tip I've shown before, but it always seems to blow someone's mind, so it's worth sharing. Tip number 2 is scrapping cement into stone. That's right, if you dig up some cement from these pallets and then scrap it in your inventory, you get stone. Perfect for if you want to get a lot of raw stone in the early game before you have good tools. Maybe you want to turn it into cobblestone, or maybe you want a load of stone arrows. I don't really care what you do with the stone as long as you know that you can scrap cement and cobblestone. From one simple and easy trick to a much more mathematical tip. Number 3 is armor calculations. First of all, the way armor rating works in this game is 1 point of armor translates into 1% damage resistance, up to a practical maximum of 90%. The stamina per second value of your armor is actually how much it reduces the amount of stamina you regenerate while sprinting. This is kind of complicated, but basically as you sprint, you also regenerate stamina, which allows you to sprint slightly longer. If you have no armor on, you'll regen your stamina at a rate of 10 points per second. For every piece of armor you put on, that is reduced by however much the armor says. So if your armor says -2 stamina per second, it means it removes 2 from that default stamina per second of 10, meaning it becomes 8. This is why sprinting is so much harder in heavy armor. Tip number 4 actually stays in this armor category, but I've separated it because I want to talk about something else as well. Critical hits. In 7 Days to Die, you can get injuries like abrasions when you take a hit. This is a critical hit. But how do you prevent them? Well, your armor will have a critical resistance rating which you can check in the statistics menu. With every hit you take in a given combat encounter, this resistance will degrade. If it hits 0, you can start taking critical hits. Every time you take a critical injury, your critical resistance will be reset to its highest value. And when combat ends, your critical resistance will regenerate. Your armor's critical resistance will be labelled as minus something as its critical resistance. This is because a given piece of armor's critical resistance is actually calculated as 10 plus the shown armor crit resist value. So if you have a piece of armor with -4 crit resist, it will give you 6 critical resistance, as 10 plus -4 equals 6. That was a lot of numbers and I do apologise. Don't worry, tip number 5 is much simpler. Books and schematics. If you know how to craft something or have read the book before, you will have an open book icon in the corner. If you haven't read the book or don't know how to craft something, it will show a closed book. Be careful though, as if you have a perk that teaches you how to craft something, it will display the book as open on the corresponding schematic, meaning you may not be able to actually craft that item if you spec out of that perk with a forgetting elixir. See, that tip was nice and easy, there wasn't even any numbers. On to number 6, temperature effects. What do they do? Well, let's start with heat. In the desert, you may get heat effects. The first level is simply hot. This just makes you use more water points per point of stamina regenerated. The next level is sweltering. While suffering the effects of sweltering, you will use even more points of hydration per point of stamina regenerated. This is from the buffs.xml file. On the other end of the spectrum, we have cold. Cold will increase the amount of food you use over time, as well as the amount of food you use per stamina point regenerated. And freezing will do this to an even more severe extent. I will do a full video covering this topic on a granular level using the game files when Alpha 20 is out, just in case they mess with any of the statistics. If you want to avoid temperature effects, you can use clothes and the well insulated perk. Number 7 is treasure maps. When you read a treasure map, it will spawn the treasure chests somewhere in a 500 meter to 1250 meter radius from where you read it. So don't go reading it while you're out looting. Do it close to your base so that you can minimise travel time in the long run. The last thing you want to do is read a treasure map when you're already 2 kilometers away from your base and have to go another 1 kilometer to find the treasure and come 3 kilometers to get back. Better to bring it home in your next loot run, read it there, and go and get the treasure when you're nearby. Number 8. Robotic sledges. Robotic sledges are good, use them. No, but seriously, try adding them to your horde base and watch the zombies struggle to even reach you. With Robotics Inventor rank 5, you can have 2 of these up and running at the same time. Tip number 9 is easy guns. Traders have a reasonable chance of selling guns on day 1, and they can be as cheap as 400 dukes. When you first spawn in, it's a good idea to get the tutorial done and go straight to the trader. On the way there, if you find any schematics you'll likely never use, like a random weapon mod schematic, it's better to keep that and sell it for the 160 dukes, as this will still give you the XP you'd get for reading it, but you also get 160 dukes, which if you happen upon a few of these, you can use to get a gun as early as possible. Just don't go selling your useful schematics like forge schematics and workbench schematics. While we're on the topic of traders, number 10 is a guide to getting all the best prices. First of all, you're going to want to max out the Better Barter perk, which will give you 25% better prices when buying or selling, and unlocks the best tier of the secret stash. Next is Magnum Enforcer rank 4, which gives you 5% better prices when you have a 44 caliber weapon out. That's the 44 revolver and the Desert Vulture. Next, we have the Cigar, which gives 10% better prices at the trader. We also have some temporary consumables that can give you better deals. Sugar Butts give 10% better prices, Awesome Sauce gives 20% better prices, and finally, Pumpkin Cheesecake will give 5% better prices, but only when buying. These all interact nicely by just adding up the percentages before calculating the prices, which means you don't need a calculator to figure out what your discount is. So if you had all of these at the same time, you would have a 75% discount when buying, or a 70% increase in selling price when selling. Let's continue on the topic of traders. Number 11, avoid the vending machines. No, not those ones, those are actually useful. Yeah, the player rented ones. A given player can rent one of these in a world at any of the trader outposts. You can rent them for 2,500 dukes for 30 days. These do sell things over time to NPCs. Every day the trader has a chance to buy something from them. But before you go all Sigma male grind set and try to get some passive income, it's honestly not all that worth doing in my experience. You're much better off just taking your stuff directly to the trader and selling it there. If anyone has any tips on actually making money with the player rented vending machines, let us know down in the comments. By the way, player owned vending machines don't generate any income in single player. Those are for multiplayer players to sell things to other players. Although I have heard you can use player owned vending machines as sortable storage even if you're not on multiplayer. Speaking of multiplayer, this is a warning to any of the PvE players out there. Number 12, Molotovs are broken. If you're playing with PvP disabled on a multiplayer server, you can still take damage from someone's Molotov cocktail as the flames don't count as player damage. Don't panic though, it's very easy to put out the flames. If you catch on fire, all you have to do is drink something or jump into some water. Drinking puts out the fire and will stop you from taking any further damage. Number 13 is a simple combat tip for new players. When fighting zombies with melee in the early game, try and drag them over to a doorway and close it. Then wait to hear them hit the door. For a few moments after hitting the door, the zombie cannot attack. This is your chance to open the door and get your attack in. Then close the door again, wait for the hit, and then repeat until they die. Number 14, replacing your workstations. If you place a workstation down in the wrong place, don't scrap it. Place down a land claim block and hold E on the station and press take. There you go, it's back in your inventory. Make sure to clear out your forge's smelted inventory before doing this, because if you don't, it will delete the smelted resources. Number 15, Trap XP. Traps are an excellent way to kill zombies, especially early on. You can shave off the numbers on some Horde Knights with a few spikes, or later in the game with some SMG turrets. Just remember that unless you have invested in the higher ranks of advanced engineering, you won't get any XP from the kills the traps get. This may or may not be a problem. Maybe you don't want to level quickly so that the Horde Knights stay easier for longer. Or maybe you're trying to power level and those pesky traps keep stealing your kills. Either way, it's important to note that using traps will reduce the amount of XP you get from Horde Knights, even with max advanced engineering giving you 50% of the potential XP. Do with that information what you will. Number 16, Meat Collection. If you didn't know already, using a knife or a machete on a corpse will give you the full harvest when compared to using an alternate tool, like a stone axe. What you may not know is that for whatever reason, steel knuckles can also give the full harvest from corpses. If you're doing a brawler playstyle, you can throw your knives away after you get up to the steel knuckles and save the hotbar slot for something else. Realistically, for a brawler build, that's going to be beer. Number 17, do the tutorial. This is another tip for those freshly spawned new players, but I do see a lot of experienced players still get this a little bit confused. If you complete the 8 tutorial missions, you can get 4 skill points. What that means for you new players is that yes, you should definitely do the tutorial as soon as possible. 4 skill points is a big help. And what that means for you experienced players is no, you don't have to go to the trader to get your 4 skill points. You get them when you place the campfire. I say this because I had a couple of people delete their tutorial quest on our no trader server because they thought that because there was no traders, they couldn't get those 4 skill points. Don't be like them, do the tutorial. The trader is up to you. Number 18, Infection. If you get infected, it takes 7 days to die. It's the title of the game, get it? You can cure 5% of the infection with honey, which you can find sometimes when chopping these tree stumps. Number 19, Weapon Mods. Attaching a weapon mod to a weapon, regardless of what it does, increases your damage by 10%, plus whatever the actual effect of the mod is. But more importantly, attaching a mod to a weapon, a tool, or piece of armor massively increases the price of the item, more than if you simply sold the mod. If you have 4 random armor mods and you don't want a level 6 piece of armor, you can sell it for some pretty stupid amounts of money. Also, the remaining durability of an item affects its price, so be sure to repair that item if you want to maximize profits. Number 20, Farming Timers. Corn, super corn, and mushrooms take 180 minutes to grow. Everything else takes 120 minutes to grow. This is regardless of day length and daylight length. That's it, I just get that question a lot. Number 21, Stealth Timers. If an enemy detects you, it will search for you for 60 seconds. After that, it will go do something else. I don't know, zombie stuff, playing Candy Crush Saga probably. But with the final rank of From the Shadows, they will only search for 20 seconds. These damn millennials and their phones shortening their attention spans. Number 22, Armoured Enemies. The utility zombies have 20% damage resistance. So do the bikers and football players. Soldier Zombie has 50% damage resistance, and the Demolition Zombie has 60% damage resistance. To combat this, you can use armor piercing ammo. Yes, it works now. Or the Penetrator perk to gain an extra 35% armor penetration. Number 23, Game Stage and Loot Game Stage. Your game stage affects the enemies you fight and the loot you find. You can see your current game stage on the leaderboard screen. As this number increases, you will be fighting harder zombies. It is calculated as player level plus days survived times 1.2. Days survived is how many days have passed where you didn't die. Your loot game stage is based on your game stage, and for the most part it's just the same as your regular game stage, unless you're using the Lucky Looter perk, the Lucky Goggles, or Eye Candy, which all increase your loot game stage by either a percentage or a hard value. And that's why you can't find a gun on day 1 except finding pistols and toilets and guns being sold at traders. Number 24, Maps. I'm sure that most of you know that if you press M, you'll open up the map of your world. And again, I'm sure most of you know that if you right click, you can place a marker and select Save Waypoint. From there you can click on an icon and enter a name for a clearer waypoint. That's all fairly common knowledge. What you may not know though is first of all that you can center on a waypoint by clicking the Show on Map icon. But more interestingly, you can click the compass icon for that marker to be turned yellow and be highlighted. This not only makes the icon more obvious on a cluttered compass, but it also shows the icon in the 3D space, as well as the distance you are away from it. This is fantastic if you're trying to do anything technical that relies on distance. Maybe you're trying to test your weapon damage fall off, for example. It's also great for if you want to know exactly how far away you are from your home, which is great for when you're looting so that you know not to stray too far to not get caught at night. This is a minor quality of life feature, but it does have a few useful applications and I've never seen anyone use it, so I thought I'd include it on this list. Just before we go on to number 25, I thought I'd remind you to hit that like button, and if you've learned anything, consider subscribing for more content just like this. Number 25, Free XP. The Art of Mining Volume 5 allows you to turn basic resources like wood, stone and ores into compact stacks. This gives a lot of XP. Now the amount you get reduces for each time you stack a given resource, but this is still just free XP. Completely free. So for example, if you take 6,000 wood and turn it into a stack of wood, you get 18,000 XP. But if you then unpack that stack and craft it again, you'll get 9,000 XP. This continues on like this until you start getting really small amounts of XP. Remember though that this can be done on a resource by resource basis and can be done with all of these resources. So if you were to join an established multiplayer server and someone kindly gifts you an Art of Mining Volume 5 book and a stack of all the basic resources, what happens when you stack all of them 10 times? This would give you enough XP to go from level 1 to level 21, and it'll take about 14 minutes, less than a quarter of an in-game day. Then if you do the tutorial, you'll have 24 skill points, possibly before the end of your first day on a server. If your friend is really nice and gives you some learning elixirs and nerdy glasses before you do this, as well as that stack of all the basic resources, and you cycle them 10 times, rather than level 21, you'll be level 24 in about 12 minutes, and you'll be very close to level 25 as well, leaving you with 27 skill points after the tutorial. Beyond 10 cycles, the XP gains will be negligible, and you'll want to switch over to concrete upgrading to level quickly from there, or maybe trading. But still, if you join a multiplayer server late, why not ask your friends if they have a spare Art of Mining book, and then spend 15 minutes rearranging their storage and confuse the hell out of them by being level 24 instantly. Even if you're not on a multiplayer server, this mechanic shouldn't be ignored. For those of you with long-standing worlds, how much XP are you just sitting on in your storage room? Give it a try and tell me how many levels you got from it. And that was 25 tips and tricks for 7 Days to Die Alpha 19. Did you learn anything new? Do you have any tips for new players? Let us know down in the comments. And once you're done there, why not check out 7 underrated perks in 7 Days to Die, or whatever YouTube recommends. As always, a special thanks to my channel members Violet Plague, Elodie, the many talented Mr. Jefferson, Eviscerina, Grassy Gaming, VR Stuz, and Cool Anime Girls. Thank you all so much for watching, and I'll see you in the next video.